Ahoj a dobrý den všem, já vás vítám u dalšího dílu našeho Heureka podcastu. Mé jméno je Tomáš Braverman a když pro vás nenatáčím podcast, tak vedu Heureka Group, kterou určitě všichni znáte. Jsme největší nákupní rádce a srovnávač cen v regionu střední a východní Evropy. A pokud se o nás chcete dozvědět víc, koukněte třeba na Heureka Group. Teď koukám na mýho hosta, vidím, že je úplně zděšený, že mluvím česky. I'm just saying that you look to be scared that I speak in Czech. That was something. Takže dneska máme anglicky mluvícího hosta. Budeme mít podcast v angličtině. So I'm switching to English. My guest today is Adi Morun. Adi, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Just come closer to the mic, please.
Yes.
So Adi is a Canadian and actually is a Microsoft worker. Adi, you've been working at Microsoft for 12 years. Recently, you were actually the COO of Microsoft Czech Republic by April this year. And now you are leading AI and data in a much wider region. It's CEE, Middle East and Africa, right?
That's right, yeah.
But actually, like I said, you've been working at Microsoft for 12 years, different regions, different verticals, different jobs. Nice experience, and thanks a lot for coming, and I'm looking forward.
Likewise, looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
By the way, did I pronounce your name well?
You did. It's Adi, yes.
It's an interesting name. What is the origin?
It's actually short for Adrian. I'm
okay.
Romanian. I'm born in Romania. I'd moved to Canada when I was young, when I was 12, actually. But a lot of Adrians in Romania, and Adi is the short form that we all use.
And the surname? That's a typical Romanian surname?
It's not typical, no. It's quite unique, but it's Romanian, I guess.
By the way, my name is Braverman, and it's definitely not a typical Czech name. Actually, we are the only Bravermans in the Czech Republic. My grandfather, as far as I know, he was a Jew, and then he kind of escaped to Ukraine, and there he was adopted by a guy, Braverman, but then he escaped, ran away again, and to the Czech Republic, where he set up a family. So we are really the only Bravermans in the Czech Republic, which I'm kind of proud of, I have to say.
That's great.
Adi, obviously, I'm looking forward to discussing with you AI, which is the number one hot topic these days. But actually, before we start discussing AI, I was thinking to discuss Microsoft a little bit more because it's great to have an insider here. I, as an outsider, would say that a situation in Microsoft changed very much after the current CEO, Satya Nadella. Do I pronounce it well?
That's right.
Yeah. After he came, before, to me, it seemed that it had been kind of, that Microsoft had been going, wrong direction, euphemistically said. And after he came, he made a U-turn, and it seems that he started to focusing on the right things like cloud and AI. So do I see it well, or how would you say it as an insider, actually?
For sure. I think we all feel very blessed and fortunate when he joined. And the change that we've seen, of course, coming from the top, coming from him, but across the organization was quite profound. And it really started with, first of all, just grounding ourselves in our mission. What is it that we do? What are we all about? And he spent a significant amount of time with his leadership team and across the organization, really refining what it is that we do. Every single word mattered. Our mission now is to empower every person and every organization in the world to achieve more. And that meant a lot to everything that we did. And it kind of got ingrained into our engineering teams, into our product teams, into our field sales and marketing teams. And so it started with that, grounding ourselves in what we do. And then from there it kind of moved to what are we as an organization? We are at the core a platform company. And so once you understand the mission, why you do what you do, it's important to understand what it is that you truly offer. We're not an ads company. We're not an e-commerce player. We are a platform company. And really, our job is to enable other organizations or people, like we say, every person, every organization, to achieve more through our platform, through our technology. And so if you know that that's what you are, a true platform company, the decisions that you make need to be aligned with that. And I think the reason we've been on the upward trajectory, like you said, around cloud and AI, is also based on the platform decisions that Satya and the leadership team made. And so early on in his tenure, we started to embrace open source a lot more. We used to be known as the company that did not like open source. You know, a few years ago, when I was running the Azure business in Canada, we celebrated widely that we had reached 50% of our Azure business was open source. It was on Linux VMs, which for us, that would have been crazy, right? 10 years ago. So all of a sudden it's about a platform. You know, then a lot of the products that we provide to consumers, we made available on all platforms. And so we started making our Office applications available on Apple, on iPad. Again, decisions.
Although it's not as good as on a Microsoft device, right? I'm fighting with that, honestly, a little bit.
You know, but it's funny, right? Because back in the day, you couldn't walk into Microsoft Office with an iPhone. Now we all have iPhones.
Really?
At home, my kids have iPads and Surfaces. Okay. So it's this idea that we don't compete against everyone. There's so many areas where, okay, we may compete on one end, but we're partners on other fronts. And at the end of the day, we want to provide a platform and the technology for everyone, whether it's running on a Windows or on a Mac device, as long as the user gets the end benefit of having the Office application in that example. And so a lot of these decisions were made around the platform, our interoperability with other vendors, our partnerships, and so on, that just weren't happening before. And then we started making some really smart acquisitions, I would say. You know, prior to that, maybe some acquisitions maybe didn't land so well, like the Nokia one. I think a lot of people talk about. But then we made some really, really smart decisions. LinkedIn probably being one of the best ones. GitHub, if you're in the development space. Minecraft in the education/gaming space. Nuance in the AI space for healthcare. So a lot of the decisions we made are about how do we bring in complementary platforms that further build our platform that we provide organizations. And then the last thing I would say is with all of that, just some fundamental changes in our culture, in our values, and how we collaborate, how we ensure that our people work together as opposed to compete with each other. I think Microsoft had a bit of a reputation of a highly competitive environment internally. And how do we turn that into being a highly collaborative environment? And if you do that well internally within your own organization, then you become more collaborative externally with your partners, with your customers. And so I would say those are some of the reasons I've noticed in the turnaround.
Actually, I looked up your values: respect, integrity, and accountability. So do you really live them, like people in Microsoft?
Yeah, for sure. I think, that I'll give you a couple examples. I personally am a big believer of them. I see people around me, or whether it's our leadership teams or, the teams that I have the honor to work with every day, really stand by them. And, it's easy to say that, right? It's easy to put on a website and to say that, but maybe I'll give you a couple examples. Where a couple times a year we do what we call people discussions, try to understand more about our talent, trying to assess from a performance perspective, understand where we need to make potential moves, promotions, lateral moves, and so on, and really have a rich discussion about the impact that our people are making. And I've seen us firsthand many times infuse values as a core part of how we assess impact. And you may think that impact, especially I'm part of the sales organization. So you would think that it's all about the numbers, right? Like, are you achieving your targets? Are you growing your business? And so on. But really, this core principles of the values that are critical to us, as well as what we call our cultural principles, things like growth mindset, are we customer obsessed? We work as one Microsoft. We actually apply those as part of our performance management principles. And so I've seen people, for example, that were rock stars in terms of their performance, maybe hitting 300% of their targets, but really not doing it in a respectful way or with the right level of integrity with their peers or with their partners or customers. And we take note of that. We coach against it, we assess against it, and then the impact gets reduced in that situation. And I've seen the opposite. Maybe you didn't have the best year, but you've done it in the right spirit. You've really upheld our values, and then we recognize that. And so I've seen it actually being built into our performance management principles and many other examples, but it's not just words. It's when you see them in practice.
Very often it's just words, and very often it stays on the paper. And I think it's much harder actually to make it happen, to make the people live the culture, all the values, than create them. Yeah,
That's right.
That's what we are also trying. We have 3 core values: freedom, fun, and fairness. And like you said, we are trying to implement them to different processes. Hiring is a natural one, but it's also, onboarding, but it's also assessment of people. Not only are we finding out how they perform, but also if they live according to the values, if they live the values, and many other processes. So it's different to have the values and live them, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, you know what? Satya is an Indian. This is interesting. I found out that actually it's some 5 digital hegemons, big companies having an Indian guys as a CEO. It's Microsoft, but it's also Google, YouTube, IBM, and Adobe. So, do you think what is the reason? Is it just because it's too many Indians, or is there a different pattern or fundament?
No. I've had the pleasure in Canada is a very diverse country, and so is its workforce. And I've been surrounded by teammates, managers, leaders coming from all over the world, but a lot from India and from Southeast Asia in general. And I tell you, the strength of the character, the values that they have embedded in their upbringing and their the way they've been raised, of course the intelligence, the IQ, the skills required to comprehend such a complex business, and the great business minds that they have. My first manager at Microsoft was also Indian, actually. One of my closest mentors is also Canadian Indian as well, and I learned tremendously from them. And I think it's that the strength of their values compared to their really good blend of IQ and EQ, that really allows them to be fantastic leaders. And I think that's what we're seeing with Satya and with many of the other CEOs as well.
So you think it has to do with the Hinduism, with the religion?
I'm not a very religious person, so I don't know if I want to 100% associate it with that. And I think at the core, though, it has to do more with values.
But I think, Hinduism is, in my view, it's not only a religion, it's more a philosophy.
That's right.
And
that's fair.
I had a guest in my podcast, Sanjeev Suri. He's a founder of Zatishi Group, if you know.
I've listened to it.
Really tremendous guy, really unbelievable, respectful, and admirable person.
Yeah.
And I could have seen the philosophy in him, how he was raised. And for example, 50% of the money he makes, he gives to charity, and that's the way he lives. Yeah, contributing to the society is part of his nature. It's unbelievable, so admirable and inspiring, truly inspiring person. So I just wanted to say that, in my view, it has to do with the philosophy of these guys, which is so nice.
Yeah. You mentioned the concept of service and charitable donations. Both of the mentors I mentioned, both of which are Indian Canadian, really adopt by the philosophy of servant leadership. It's ideology. There's a whole book about it, and it's quite popular about leading in service of others. And I've seen that, and I've tried to learn and model my what I've been doing at Microsoft after them, because it's really phenomenal to see them lead, but lead in a way that makes others better, makes others more successful, maximize the potential of others. And it's probably comes down to the same philosophy that you're mentioning as well. It's deeply rooted in their values.
Okay, back to ground, money.
Back to money.
No, just I would say last question regarding Microsoft itself. That's the revenues. We are a business podcast, so
That's right,
our listeners are always curious about revenues, money, results. So it's some $20 million US dollars. No, 20 billion. No, 20 billion US dollars revenues in 2023. Did I find it well?
I think it was about 200, but it's,
yeah, 200 million. That's it. Yeah?
200 billion.
Billion.
With a B.
No, I have a mistake here. It's million, but I knew it was weird to have it only in million because we make 80 million. So 200 billion US dollars yearly revenues, right? That's it. Okay. But what I'm more interested in is actually the revenue split. I would bet that it's the cloud. What is the biggest revenue source?
The cloud is the biggest driver. So I think if you look at it roughly, and obviously this could change quarter by quarter, and maybe I don't have the latest figures, but close to a third of that comes from what we call the server and cloud business. This is Azure, really.
How much you said?
About 33%.
33.
About a third.
Okay, a third. Okay.
And that's everything to do with Azure. So the core infrastructure, the platform services, the databases, the data services as well. AI now being part of that. It's about a third of the business. It also includes some of the on-premise technology that's now a lot of it moving to the cloud. So a lot of the SQL or Windows Server infrastructure from the past. And then still staying with the cloud, but on the what we call productivity or modern work side is the Office suite of products. And that's about 22%. So this is your traditional Office. That's now Office 365 and a suite of other productivity type solutions that come with it. After that is Windows, which of course now also runs in the cloud. So that's about 12-13%. And then you have Xbox and gaming. Xbox also runs in the cloud, like Xbox Live, many gamers use, LinkedIn. And then about 5% is search and search ads. But what's interesting about this, and you don't know this, but you set me up really well, is when we look at our competition, this is often a conversation we have. When you look at what makes up the pie chart of our revenue is predominantly cloud services or platforms that enable other vendors to build on top of our cloud services. And when you look at Amazon, for example, 70% of their revenue comes from e-commerce. And 7% from physical stores, 6% from Prime subscription. Only 11% comes from actual core platform, AWS. So it's completely reversed. If you look at Google, one of our fierce competitors, of course, 80% of their business is ads revenue, whether it's direct ads or network members or YouTube ads. And only 7% comes from their Google Cloud and AI. So that's why for us, strategically, we're a platform, cloud and AI platform company first, not an ads or an e-commerce company first. Just different strategies. And we came at it.
Understood. Okay, Adi, let's move to AI, if you agree.
Sure.
So, ChatGPT, a word being repeated so many times these days, hot topic. But not only a buzzword, but I found out that it's some 100 million users these days.
Yeah.
How long has it been since it was launched?
November, a few months.
Shit, 100 million users. Unbelievable.
Fastest to 1 million, fastest to 10 million, fastest to 100 million.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, ChatGPT provided by a company called OpenAI, which was invested to a certain extent by Microsoft. But before we go into detail, I just wanted to ask you to actually describe a little bit what it is based on, because it's the so-called large language models, the new kind of AI or machine learning area. So tell us how it works a little bit. Not too big details, but you know.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And before I talk a bit about LLM, I think it's important to note that ChatGPT and OpenAI is getting a ton of hype, as it should, because it's now widespread adoption, consumers understand it. But this is backed by 50 years plus of AI research. Like the term AI was coined, I have here, in 1956. And machine learning actually came in the 90s. Deep learning came in the 2000s. And now we're getting into this field called generative AI, which is what ChatGPT is an example of. But I say that because there's been, without this 50 years of research and us getting to parity on things like object recognition, vision, speech, translation from language to language or human to machine and so on, all that research and work that's been done by many organizations, that's what got us to this place where we can now invest and build these large language models. So just wanted to give a little bit of that history because it's getting all the buzz, but it's on the back of some tremendous investments and research in AI.
It's an evolution, not revolution.
It's an evolution. Yeah, exactly. In terms of large language model, I knew you were going to ask. I prepared something interesting so you'd see it. So first I asked ChatGPT, how do you define simply, in less than a minute, what's a large language model? And it is an advanced artificial intelligence system designed to process and generate human-like text, and it's trained on massive amounts of data. Okay, so that's it.
That's what ChatGPT told you, right?
Yeah,
define.
That's at the basics. If you go a little bit deeper, it will explain that, hey, it uses deep learning techniques. It uses an architecture called transformer, which is the T in GPT, which is what allows you to kind of analyze and understand the relationships between words and sentences and therefore respond in a human-like manner. Yeah. But then I said, hey, ChatGPT, can you explain that? Use a metaphor, use an animal. Because I was talking to someone and they said it's like a parrot. I was like, is it really like a parrot? Because the parrot just repeats what you say. It's not really like a parrot. So I asked ChatGPT, give me an animal to describe what is an LLM. And I thought this was interesting. Certainly. Imagine a large language model is a highly intelligent chameleon. Like a chameleon, the model is trained to adapt to its environment, blend in seamlessly, and instead of changing colors, it processes and generates human-like text. Just like a chameleon, it learns from its surroundings, but the language model is trained on vast amount of text data to understand grammar, semantics, and context, so it can mimic human-like responses.
So I would say ChatGPT is not only a chameleon, but it's also a poet.
That's right. That's right. It's a little bit of both. Yeah. I thought it was a good example. So that's what an LLM is.
Yeah, thank you. That's nice. By the way, we'll come to that, yeah. But I also asked ChatGPT. We were wondering where we should use ChatGPT in our e-commerce world. Yeah. So what should I do? Well, I should ask ChatGPT what it is good at in the e-commerce world. So that you reminded me with asking ChatGPT what ChatGPT is now. But anyway, I wanted to actually discuss a little bit more the use cases, what it has been used nowadays in everyday life. Maybe I'll start there. I have to say I use ChatGPT every day in both my personal life and in my business life. Pretty recently, I asked ChatGPT about an itinerary for a vacation in Norway, because I promised my wife that I would prepare that for the first time in my life. All the other vacations were prepared by my wife, but it was just super. Yeah, I have to say, like ChatGPT created a really wonderful itinerary for the vacation in Norway. Now I'm a superstar, a hero at home, because my wife would never say that I could come up with such a nice plan for the vacation. But I have to say it was really great. At work, like I said, I use ChatGPT for different purposes, for summaries of different texts. As soon as we have really long texts, for example, when we do some survey and we have hundreds and hundreds of answers, we let ChatGPT summarize that. I also use it for, creating texts in a more formal way, blah, blah, blah. So many use cases. What use cases would you say are the most common or the best?
Yeah, I'll focus maybe a bit more on the business side. So I've been fortunate to be in this role now for a couple months. And I just came back from Dubai, actually. I was there for a week. And I get to travel and see this hype. This AI hype is everywhere in the world. So it doesn't matter that you're in Czech Republic, speaking to a financial services institution here, or one in Nigeria, or one in Qatar. They're all trying to jump on the AI bandwagon,
on the hype,
and capture the hype. Yeah. But what's interesting is to see how the use cases are very similar across the world and across industries. And so it really, when we look at all the use cases and the demand that we have, it comes down to kind of three horizontal things. And then I'll give you one cool example that I really like. But the three fundamental use cases that customers are trying to solve is, the first one is taking these models, taking the OpenAI capabilities and applying them to their own enterprise data so they can query their own enterprise data. So whether it's a bank, whether it's a government, an educational institution like a school or a ministry, ultimately you want to build some applications that scans all the data that you have internally, so you can then leverage that data to better service your employees, your customers, your citizens. So that's kind of use case number one. It's all about, I have a ton of enterprise data. How do I query it really, really quickly? The second use case that we see builds on the first one is then how do we create highly contextual summarization that is valuable in some format? And so, it's great to converse, it's great to interact, it's great to engage, but what if I want to present some sort of output in a call center? So say, a call center gets tons of calls a day. How do I generate the right summary of what happened in that call center so I can better inform the next person that needs to interact with the same customer? Or whether it's a learning assistant that you get provided at school or with Duolingo, if you use Duolingo for language learning, how do you then provide a summarization of the next step of the learning that's required for the individual? So summarization of content is kind of that second big topic. And the third one is the one that actually gets all the hype, is content generation. And so we see content generation in various modalities, various multimedia, right? So it started with text, then it became imagery. It's all over the net and social media, I'm sure. You've seen it. It became audio, video, podcast, content generation. And so content generation is kind of the ultimate goal, or it's been the ultimate goal. And here's where you've also seen things like GitHub, where over 50% of the code is now generated by AI, which makes the life of coders a lot easier because it eliminates the mundane tasks.
Easier or harder, depends.
It depends how you look at it. Easier or not easier, more enjoyable. They don't have to do the repetitive coding, and they can focus on the good stuff. But the point is ultimately you want to generate some sort of content that gets produced through a channel. So those are kind of the three I call horizontal use cases. And then I'll give you one that's not in e-commerce. Then maybe if you want to, we can come back to e-commerce. This is the one that I was most impressed with last week in Dubai. So the Ministry of Education of UAE, United Arab Emirates, basically is going to provide a personalized AI tutor to each student in the country, serviced through Teams on their iPads or whatever devices they have. You have basically a highly contextual, conversational, available in multiple languages tutor that could help you study better, faster, more efficiently. And so, you can kind of take yourself back to the days of being in, grade 11, learning physics or something. And there's one teacher for 24 students, and the topic is complex, and different students have different learning levels or appetite or excitement for a topic like physics. And it's hard for a teacher, right, to be able to connect with each student to maximize the teaching and the value that the student gets. And so to have a personalized tutor side by side with you when you're stuck, to be able to converse with, that remembers what you've asked over time, gets to know you, becomes a better tutor for you, it's pretty powerful. And as a country and as a ministry, to make the decision of, we're not going to get scared by this, we're actually going to leverage this to improve the education of our future generation. That was pretty impressive. And
that is.
I was thinking, how do we bring that to Czech? How do I bring it to Canada? And I feel like we should all be so progressive.
This is super interesting, and but actually, a teacher is exactly a job which, like you are saying, which can be replaced with AI. Well, the question is if we want it, but it can happen for sure. By the way, a couple of years ago, I would swear that actually the creative jobs are the last one which are going to be replaced by AI, and now here it is the creative job being replaced by AI. This is really a big change. And now it's widely discussed, okay, what kind of jobs will be replaced, will it happen, what stays, and what will happen to the labor market, blah, blah, blah. Do you have insights?
Yeah, tons. This is a hot debate, of course.
Yeah, sure.
okay, you may say, of course you're going to say this, but we strongly believe it's not going to replace jobs. It's going to augment jobs. And it's going to make those individual in the job more productive, more efficient, better at their job. And so you may have seen even in all the products that we've launched, we call them co-pilots. Because the concept is that we're providing a teacher a co-pilot to help in their teaching. If you talk to most teachers I spoke to at my school, they're excited at the fact that instead of a 1-to-20 ratio, now it would be them as the pilot with a lot of little co-pilots supporting and ensuring that the educational outcome is better. So the idea is that it wouldn't replace the job, it would augment it, and it would make it a lot better. So that's our strong perspective on kind of job reduction, job elimination.
But what if the co-pilot is so much better than the pilot? Yeah. What happens then? That's the question, you know.
The reality is, I believe this, we will always need human contextual capability, ability to reason, ability to build relationships, empathy. Okay, you can argue that some of that can be built into the co-pilots, but there's an element of humanity that I don't think we're going to get there. At least anytime soon, I don't think so. And so, you know, you're a 6-year-old child, right? You still need that human element. It can be augmented by AI, but I don't think it would be replaced because it wouldn't do justice to the relationship that you need to have between a teacher and a child.
I'll come back to this topic because it is interesting to discuss what risk it is, what it could mean in the future. But back to the use cases, do you have any idea, or do you have ideas what use cases ChatGPT has in e-commerce?
Yeah, we have quite a few actually, and some amazing partners that now we're working with on this. So I have a few I'll share with you. I think you've mentioned a couple, so it'll be interesting. The first one that we see most often is building marketing copy for product listings, because you can create, you know, whether it's the headlines, the actual text body, the images itself, the videos, you can build highly creative, highly diverse products faster, really. Marketing copy
in a bigger scale, much bigger
at a bigger scale, yeah. Exactly. And so Shopify, I think you know, it's a Canadian e-commerce player. I had to choose a Canadian one. They launched a product called Magic, and that's exactly what it does. It like really quickly automates the copy and the pictures and the imagery to support millions of product listings through their platform. The second one is what we call mass personalized product search. And so, you know, I think you shared this example as well, maybe if I understood it correctly, but also really quickly summarizing the product descriptions and the reviews from users to then provide more personalized content in the search. And so the example that we always use is company in the US, CarMax. It's like a car dealership e-commerce platform. And they were saying they produced 11 years worth of car summaries in months through OpenAI. So, of course, when you have so many reviews, it's only so much you can summarize without a co-pilot, right? Helping you along the way. A few other examples, you know, personalized marketing campaigns, whether it's, you know, images or videos based, personalized visual content. So Coca-Cola is doing this to customize their ad copy based on who's engaging in the platform with customized images and messages built by AI. Virtual shopping assistants, I think, are pretty common now. And
Zalando has it, right?
I think. And speaking companions, so it's a shopping assistant with speaking capabilities. The other one I saw recently, and it was really, really cool in the fashion space, is product development. So you can iterate so much faster now on developing new product based on trends, based on social media feedback. And so you can just generate, you know, color patterns and new products at massive scale. Customer service, we talked about it, applies in e-commerce as well. Bots are very common. The idea there, I was also talking to a customer about this in Dubai, is the whole goal is how do you make the customer service bot be so efficient that it answers the question faster and it doesn't necessarily lead someone to say, okay, can I talk to a human, right? You want to kind of prolong the value on the bot. And I think with, you know, more conversational, more contextual GPT-driven bots, you can do that. They will just be better equipped to answer the right question. And the last one I'll leave you with, because I think it's one I will use personally, because it's super cool. I've seen this demo, and I think we're almost there with a partner called Instacart, which I think, do we have Instacart?
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And so this is, they called it from recipe to home. And so imagine you're, searching for a recipe for a chocolate cake, and then you ask ChatGPT to extract the ingredients only, because usually you get the whole web page of really only the ingredients is what you needed. You extract the ingredients, and then you respond and you say, I actually have the flour and the sugar, but I don't have everything else. It kind of gives it to you, and then you set up the plugin to Instacart, and you automatically get all the recipes home. All the ingredients delivered to your home. And so if you're Rolik or Koshik or any other platform, I mean, that's the future, right? Like that's what you want to do. And imagine in the future, you should be able to upload a picture of what's in your fridge or what's in your pantry, and really quickly determine that, hey, I want to build a cake. This is what I need. Rolik or Koshik, please deliver it to my home.
By the way, we don't have Instacart, but I think Tomáš Čupo, the founder, should definitely has been working on this use case already. I know him, yeah. He's one of the most innovative person.
Yes. This use case is pretty awesome. So that's many e-commerce use cases. I think it's an area that's definitely is adopting AI at the leading edge, right?
Yeah. You named all of the use cases, which we are also considering. Now, actually, and we have tens and tens of different use cases which are worth analyzing and perhaps implementing. You named, I would say, the most powerful ones. Analyzing the reviews and creating summaries of the user-generated reviews, I would say, is the number one useful use case. Definitely the automatic, advisor for the users, like Zalando has now, is number two for sure. As well as in the B2B world, for the merchants on our platform to advise them what to do, how to improve their performance, etc. Because we have the text. It's just about teaching ChatGPT all the text, letting him, all the materials, or pushing ChatGPT all the materials, and then I believe that ChatGPT will be really very good at discussing and advising our partners, and of course creating all the advisory and inspirational texts. Although I have to say that we have tested that, and still it has too many mistakes. I'm sure ChatGPT will get better at not making mistakes. By the way, recently I read that ChatGPT newly tests live access to internet.
It does.
Is it true?
Yeah, it does. It's through the partnership with Bing. So now it leverages the Bing API, so it has live access to the internet, which is important. So you can have live access to the latest data. But it was also important that we phased it out, because when we were launching this, and I'm sure we're going to get to some talk about safety and proper rollout of such unbelievable technology. But it's important that you launch it and you iterate really, really quickly. But initially, you don't want to give it access to the world's data, right? Because too many risks may occur. So the initial rollout of ChatGPT had a limited data set. I think it was a year old.
Yeah, by 2021.
By 2021, right? Yeah. And now we're in a position where there's the right kind of safety and security guardrails in place that you can kind of let it explore a little bit more freely the internet.
Because that was the main difference between ChatGPT and BART. That's the AI tool by Google, which is now launched in the US, and it has live access to the internet, right? So now we
added it too,
And how about ChatGPT 4? Actually, that's the newest version, which is not yet publicly available, right?
GPT-4 is available, and GPT-4 we've embedded in Bing as well, and as well it's available through our Azure OpenAI service, which is kind of the enterprise delivery method for GPT. I think there's a few things in GPT-4 that maybe are worth mentioning relative to the ChatGPT, which was called GPT 3.5. It's really 4 things that they've made significantly better. I think the first one is that it's a more creative and collaborative tool. So it just allows you to kind of generate, edit, and iterate with users on a more creative set of tasks. So to give you an example, you could take an image of a number of ingredients. So it's an image of, I think it was flour, egg, milk, butter, and ask, what can I produce with this? And then it would be able to reason on that data, and it would be able to produce an output that says, hey, you can create, pancakes, waffles, this type of cake, pudding, whatever the case may be. So a little bit more creative, more able to complete more complicated tasks. The second thing is what we call more advanced reasoning capabilities. So it's not just responding to like a very simple question. And the example that I've seen is, imagine I asked it to book a meeting, and I gave 5 different availabilities. You're available from 10 to 3 on this day, and me from 2 to 4 on this other day, and so on and so on. And I asked it to find a common time for all of us to meet. And it could do that because it has more advanced reasoning capabilities than the original LLM. The third thing, which is probably one of the most important, is just better accuracy and better performance. I think you mentioned that. And the way they test it, I thought was really interesting. So in the US, they have the bar exam, which is the law school admission exam. And ChatGPT, so 3.5, was in the 10th percentile of results, and GPT-4 is in the 90th percentile, which is pretty crazy. And then the other one, Bill Gates likes to talk about this a lot, is one of the most complicated ways to measure is the biology Olympiad. And ChatGPT was in the 31st percentile, and GPT-4 is in the 99th percentile. So and this is in a few months, pretty drastic improvement. And then
pretty nice learning curve.
Yeah, good learning curve. And then the last one is they've embedded, and probably talk more about this too. They've embedded a lot more safety mechanisms and safety layers in it, and measurements of how safe it is. And through the measurement, they've realized in GPT-4, it's 82% less likely to respond to requests for disallowed content. So if you ask for, how do I manufacture a bomb? In the previous editions, I think you may have seen some of the memes or some of the posts, like you could actually get an answer. Now that's disallowed. And so there's plenty of safety mechanisms in place now, and it's a lot safer in GPT-4.
Anyway, I'm reluctant, or I don't know, maybe I'm kind of doubtful if you guys have it under control, and if Google guys have Bard under control. As far as I remember, the CEO of Google publicly said that he was surprised that Bart learned some language. It was Bangladesh or something like that. They didn't want him to learn it, then he did. So it's funny. I don't know. I know it's more a philosophical discussion, and none of us has the answer. But that makes me scared. To what extent, actually, we, the human beings, will have it under control? What do you think?
Yeah, we believe we're putting the right guardrails to have it under control. The reality is that it's advancing at such a crazy pace. Yeah. That yes, there is risk, and we're trying to manage that risk. There's 2 things I listened to. One is a founder of OpenAI. I thought was super interesting when he said, listen, we had 2 choices, right? We could have just kept playing with it in the lab until we thought it was perfect and then released it. Or we release it early so we learn from how the real world is going to engage with it, and then iterate really quickly to make sure that we catch any mistakes early in the process, not when it's too late. And so that was the idea behind releasing it in November, December, and so on, is that we saw some of the questions. We saw how people are trying to jailbreak it, and they really quickly went and put some more guardrails around it, put some more what we call responsible AI practices around it, started building new tools to measure safety, to measure fairness, to measure inclusiveness. And so is there risk? For sure. Because with any amazing technology, there's going to be good actors, there's going to be bad actors. But I think it's our job, together with governments, by the way, to put the right guardrails in place.
So you're a fan of regulation by the governments?
Yeah, I think we're all advocating for it or as far as I know, in the technology industry. We actually just released a paper. So our president, Brad Smith, who's quite knowledgeable in this topic, has just actually released a paper which I'll share with you afterwards. But it's, what's the 5-point blueprint on public governance and regulation of AI, and it's actually quite interesting. There's 5 elements to it that he's advocating for, and I think we all stand behind. And just going back to Dubai, like I was just there, and it's the number one question that we were getting from every customer. Like, we want to jump on it, we want to do it, but what are the right regulatory things that we need in place? What's the right governance? What are the right practices, responsible practices that we need to put in place? And so, in Brad Smith's paper, it talks about a few things. It talks about how do we implement and build upon AI safety frameworks that already exist, because there are some. So for example, in the US, they have the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, has an AI safety framework in place. Now, is it up to date with the latest technology? No, but how do we build on top of that? The second point, which I actually think is one that resonated the most with me, is how do we put safety brakes on AI systems that control critical infrastructure? So of course, if it's in a hospital or public infrastructure, you want to have some safety brakes, just like you would on an elevator. So real implementations. And then there's some other elements around, for example, how do you promote transparency for public, private, and academic access to AI, so we can all learn and iterate together. So there's some really good learnings in this paper, which I'll share with you afterwards. But the general sentiment is we need to keep building and learning responsibly with the right kind of practices in place. But we need the right partnerships between private and public institutions to govern it effectively.
By the way, what do you think of Elon Musk saying that it has a potential of destroying the human beings or the civilization? He said it literally, but at the same time he's setting up his own AI-based company. Don't take me wrong, I'm a fan of Elon, but yes, this is kind of ridiculous now.
Yes. I mean, hey, listen, we have a ton of respect for Elon Musk, of course. I think everyone does with what he's done in so many different domains. Everyone's got their own interests and motives, and everyone's trying to jump on the bandwagon as fast as possible. Do we need to slow down to speed up in terms of regulatory and governance? Yes, of course. We need to build it responsibly. But honestly, like the potential, when we see what we can do with these AI technologies, like what we can do for people with disabilities, what we can do for students that don't get access to education the way you and I did, what we can do in healthcare for cancer patients and so on, like you don't want to slow it down when you see the potential that it has to benefit humanity. So we just got to do it the right pace with the right guardrails in place.
Yeah. I'm a fan of that, and at the same time, I'm scared of that, I have to say. Let's see what the future brings. Let's see. Adi, let's get out of AI.
Yeah.
We could talk hours and hours about that for sure. But last part of our podcast, I actually wanted to ask you, how it is to live for a Canadian guy in Prague, how it is to be an expat, how you perceive the Czech people, how friendly or unfriendly they are. Tell us about your experience after moving to Prague.
Yeah, so it's been a year actually. I moved on June 6th, so June 2nd today. So it's been exactly a year. Amazing experience. For myself or for the family. I should come closer to the mic. It's been fantastic. I think maybe I'll start with the the positives, with the pros. It's an amazing city to live in for a young family, both from a kind of what I call infrastructure perspective. So things like safety, of course, access to really good healthcare, access to good education, international schools as well, which is important. Overall standard of living, okay, I know everyone complains cost of living's gone up, but go to any other capital, it's gone up even more. We come from Toronto, where cost of living skyrocketed in 3 years as well. So relatively to other amazing capital cities or major urban areas, Prague presents an amazing combination of these kind of core criteria when you choose a place that you want to live. From having a family of young kids, we also look at kids amenities, let's call them, or family amenities. So things like parks, playgrounds, transportation. You go to restaurants and there's a playground at the back. Like things like that make it just accessible and easy and enjoyable for a family to live here. I think Prague's got it really, really well. And then the last piece is just being a cosmopolitan city, but yet very manageable. We live on the outskirts of Prague, and it's a 15-minute drive to Old Town. Prague 6.
Prague 6, yeah.
Nebushice near the,
near
the airport. But yeah, it's 15 minutes to downtown. And, in Toronto, if you lived...
by the way, that David's used to be a village back a couple of tens of years ago, and now it's, I would say, more a center than a village.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's the downtown Prague 6. So being that in a cosmopolitan city with lots happening, but yet still feel small, is quite nice. And also the location, of course, being in the heart of Europe, right in the center. We go to the Alps a lot. We go, to Germany, to Austria, to all across Czech. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, actually, the Czech Republic belongs to CEE, Central and Eastern Europe, but it's Central, not Eastern.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, actually, it's really nice to hear that. Yeah, and I know it, but I think not many people value that. Not many people actually recognize that and appreciate that. Actually, I would say in Prague, the standard of living, or maybe in the Czech Republic generally, the standard of living is really high compared to the average, the global average. Yeah. And of course, yes, it went down last year, but on the other hand, still it's very high compared to many other regions in the world. Right. And I would say what I love about living in the Czech Republic, it's that it's still free. Freedom is one of the core values for me personally. And as far as I know, in the States, for example, or in Canada as well, it's much worse, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, freedom is definitely highly valued in our family as well. And I think this place provides that for sure. For sure. No, it's a wonderful place to be. We're very happy to be here and thankful that we made the leap over the ocean and landed in Prague.
What are the cons?
Yeah, so I would say maybe a couple things. First of all, I think widespread adoption of English is still, I think, has a way to go compared to other capital cities or other metropolises in the world. I think, of course, in the core and in the business setting, yes, it's no problem. But you step outside of the core, you go to the post office, you go to the hospital on the weekend because you had some sort of a need for urgent care. You go to your local Hornbach or local grocery store, and if you don't speak Czech, it's pretty hard to get by. So I would say that's probably the number one. And we see a big difference when you go to Vienna or you go to Munich, and all of a sudden the accessibility of English becomes much higher. So I would say that's one, because it just makes it difficult to operate in a day-to-day environment. The second one, I would say maybe more from a business side, is willingness to adopt best practices, ideas, technologies to some extent from the outside versus it always having to be built inside. And this, could be a philosophical debate, but in Canada, and now I'm seeing it in UAE, by default, because they are countries or societies built by expats, really, or by immigrants, by default, we welcome ideas, best practices, technologies, projects from all over the world, adopt them, make them our own, and then make our country better, right? And that's really, really how Canada is. And if I look at UAE now, which is like 70-80% expats, the idea is, how do I get the best from US, the best from Canada, the best from Europe, the best from Czech, from whoever, so that we can make this country even stronger or more innovative. And I think here it's a bit kind of different, right? It's more, this is an unbelievable country extremely smart people, we should be able to build it ourselves.
Exactly. That's the mindset of the Czech people.
That's the mindset. So, hey, listen, we can argue both ways, which one's better, but I think maybe because I'm used to this freedom of ideas and best practices from all over the world, that sometimes, like, we could have brought that from over here. We didn't have to create it ourselves.
I fully agree with both statements, actually. And regarding English, I'm angry about that because it's not hard. It's not difficult. For example, we have offices in Ljubljana in Slovenia, and all the Slovenians speak perfect English there. Why is that? It's easy. They just subtitle the movies, so the kids from the very youth just watch English movies, with no dubbing or interpreting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to here, still young generation or young kids have all the content on TV interpreted, and so they have no need to learn it. So education generally in English and these kind of things make it much worse than that it can be. And we are 10 million people and only. And no one will learn Czech, so we have to speak English. We simply have to, and we still do not. That's really sad. And yeah, but I think it will change because it will have to change.
Yeah.
Adi, it was great to talk to you on Friday.
Sure.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good luck, and see you soon. Before I actually say goodbye I'll skip to Czech for a moment. Yeah. Tak doufám, že vás dnešní díl s Adim bavil. Jako vždycky jsem vám chtěl poděkovat za přízeň, jako vždycky jsem vám chtěl říct, že jsme na YouTube s videem a na Spotify, na Apple, Google Podcast a tak dále. A samozřejmě budu rád, pokud se vám náš podcast líbí, když mi ho pomůžete dostat mezi víc lidí, ať už tím, že o něm řeknete, nebo tweetnete, nebo cokoliv dalšího. A určitě se i koukněte, poslechněte minulý díly. Adi, thanks again. It was nice. Nice weekend. Enjoy your stay in Prague. Hope you'll keep liking it like you do now. And see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.